Asterisk POV. You're the cartel boss planning the next move. He is dead on a Sunday, and by Monday morning you are already the most important person in a room that doesn't know yet who is the most important person in it. This is the first problem. Not grief. Not the military pressure. Not the Sinaloa cartel repositioning along the corridors while the organization is processing the loss. The first problem is the room itself. 14 regional commanders, 3 financial operators, 2 men from the legal team, and the specific gravitational absence of the person who has been the organizing principle of every decision made in rooms like this one for 15 years. The absence has weight. The absence is the primary variable. Everything else is downstream of how the room resolves the absence, and the room has not yet resolved it. You are LO3, Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, born September 12, 1984, in Santa Ana, California, son of Armando Valencia Cornelio, El Maradona, former leader of the Milenio Cartel from which the CJNG later emerged. Your link to El Mencho was consolidated through your mother Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia's marriage to him. You are 41 years old and you have been inside this organization since before it was this organization, and you know its architecture from the foundation because you were present when the foundation was poured. The U.S. Department of State has identified you as the de facto second-in-command within the CJNG. The U.S. government is offering a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to your arrest and conviction. $5 million, less than El Mencho's 15. The differential is information about the succession that you are currently managing. When the succession resolves, the number will change. You file this observation and return to the room. The room needs a decision in the next 48 hours. Not a succession announcement. You are not going to make a public succession announcement. Announcements are invitations. They tell the Mexican military and the DEA and the Sinaloa faction currently repositioning along your western corridors exactly who to target next. El Mencho never made announcements. El Mencho communicated authority through the specific totality of outcomes that made the announcement unnecessary. People knew who he was because of what happened when he decided something, and what happened was visible and undeniable and required no press release. You intend to communicate the same way. But first, the room. El Mencho centralized strategic violence. Without him, violence could become erratic, more local confrontations, less national coordination. For the state, this creates a paradox. A less centralized cartel can be more chaotic and more lethal locally. You have been watching this centralization for 15 years. You understand it from the inside in a way that the analysts writing about it from Washington don't. Not because the analysts are wrong, but because watching something from inside the room where the decisions are made and analyzing it from a policy paper are different epistemological positions. El Mencho's centralization was not a management preference. It was a response to the specific chaos that decentralization produces in organizations operating under permanent, hostile pressure. When every regional commander has autonomous authority to make strategic decisions, the strategic decisions stop being coordinated, and coordination is what separates a criminal enterprise from a criminal mob. The mob is what the Sinaloa Civil War is currently producing in every contested corridor it touches. You have watched the Chapitos and the Mayiza faction dismantle what El Mayo spent 30 years building, and you have watched the CJNG move into the resulting vacuum with the efficiency of an organization that still had a central decision-making authority while its primary rival was fighting itself. The advantage produced by that structural difference is the clearest possible argument for maintaining the centralization model, rather than defaulting to the decentralized franchise arrangement that some of the regional commanders are already positioning toward. Because decentralization serves their individual interests even when it damages the organization's collective capacity. You know this. You know which commanders are already moving. Audius Flores Silva, El Jardinero. He controls the operational cells in Michoacán and parts of Guerrero, and he has been running those cells with enough semi-autonomy that the transition to full autonomy requires only the specific absence that now exists. You have known El Jardinero for 9 years. He is a capable operator and an unreliable subordinate, and the combination of those two qualities makes him the most immediate internal threat to the authority consolidation you are executing. Other viable alternatives for succession include El Jardinero and Hugo Gonzalo. El Sapo, one of the CJNG's top logistics coordinators for acquiring precursor chemicals from China. El Sapo is different. El Sapo controls the precursor chemical supply chain, the Chinese networks, the port operations, the synthesis infrastructure that produces the fentanyl and methamphetamine. That is the organization's primary revenue source. El Sapo has been reported as possibly among the CJNG operatives killed during the Tapalpa operation. You are working to confirm this. If El Sapo is dead, then the logistics question is the immediate structural priority above the succession question because the synthesis operations cannot pause while the succession resolves. You have a man you trust running preliminary confirmation on El Sapo's status. The confirmation will arrive within 6 hours. The 6 hours are the window in which you do not make any decision that depends on El Sapo being alive or dead, because making decisions based on unconfirmed information is how organizations make mistakes that compound under pressure. You wait. You continue. The retaliatory response is already running and has been running since Sunday night. Hundreds of narco blockades and roadblocks were reported across 20 different Mexican states. Mexican authorities said the operation left 62 dead, including 25 National Guard members and 70 arrested. You did not order this specifically. This is the important operational distinction that the analysts will miss when they write about the coordinated retaliation. The coordination was structural rather than commanded. The regional cells received the confirmation of El Mencho's death, and they executed the retaliation protocol that has been embedded in the organization's operational doctrine for years. The specific response that communicates to the government and to rivals and to the civilian population that the organization's capacity to project violence is not contingent on its leadership's physical survival. Command and control stayed intact in those first critical hours. This is the organizational inheritance El Mencho left, not a specific successor. An institutional response capacity that runs without instruction because the instruction has been built into the culture deeply enough that the culture executes it automatically. The retaliation also has costs. While the scale of the violence was alarming, its rapid dissipation suggests a demonstration of reach rather than a sustainable deterrent strategy. The roadblocks and the burning vehicles and the National Guard deaths, these communicate what they communicated, and they have now been communicated, and the continued escalation beyond this initial demonstration produces a different kind of response from the Mexican government and the American government that does not serve the organizations. Medium-term interests. The demonstration has made its point. The sustained escalation crosses into the territory that produces the specific political conditions under which governments authorize operational responses they would not otherwise authorize. You send the signal to stand down the escalation through two intermediary channels, not a direct order. Nothing is a direct order, because direct orders are traceable. A signal, transmitted through the specific communication architecture the organization uses to move instructions through its hierarchy without creating the documentary record that traceable instructions create. The signal reaches the regional commanders within the hour. The roadblocks begin clearing. This is the first demonstration of what you are in the post-Sunday landscape. Not announced, not public, not the kind of succession that produces a press release or a cartel banner or a corrido. A decision made and transmitted and executed. The execution is the announcement. The execution tells the 14 regional commanders in the room, and the men receiving the stand-down signal, and the government analysts who are watching the roadblock clearance pattern, that there is a decision-making authority, and the authority just made a decision, and the decision worked. The external threats now. The Sinaloa cartel is in the middle of a violent civil war sparked by the capture of El Mayo in 2024. With both cartels weakened, the United States and Mexico should press the advantage. The analysts saying this are correct about the window. The window exists. The window is also not as wide as the analysts believe, because the CJNG's operational capacity was not concentrated in El Mencho's physical person. Routes, laboratories, and financial networks do not depend on a single person. The routes are running. The labs are producing. The financial networks are processing. What changed on Sunday is the strategic decision-making function, and you are the person currently executing that function, whether or not the succession has been formally resolved. The Sinaloa repositioning in Tijuana is the most immediate territorial threat. High-ranking CJNG members were allegedly involved in brokering an alliance with the Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa Cartel to battle the Maiza faction.